It is 08:57 on Wednesday, May 27, 2026. And 24 hours ago, Kim Jong Un stood at a test range on the Korean Peninsula and watched something fly. Not an intercontinental ballistic missile aimed at Los Angeles. Not a long-range rocket designed to arc above the atmosphere. Something smaller, something closer, something far more immediately dangerous to 25 million people than any ICBM has ever been. A tactical nuclear cruise missile, guided by artificial intelligence, capable of striking targets within 100 kilometers with a precision that didn't exist 3 years ago. 100 kilometers. The city of Seoul sits approximately 60 kilometers from the North Korean border. Let that land, every government building, every US military installation, every apartment tower in the Korean Peninsula's capital, within reach of a battlefield nuclear weapon that navigates terrain using AI terminal guidance, adjusts its flight path in real time. In the opening hours of a conflict, not as a deterrent, as a weapon. The global narrative has been fixed on intercontinental missiles. The story the world tells is this. The Hwasong-17, the Hwasong-18, the giant rockets that splash down in the Pacific and send a message to Washington. Kim Jong Un is building nuclear weapons to stop America from invading. Classic Cold War deterrence logic. Mutually assured destruction. Weapons whose value is in their existence, not their use. That narrative was always incomplete. As of May 26, 2026, it is officially obsolete. Because what Kim tested yesterday is not a deterrent weapon. It is a battlefield weapon. Designed not to prevent a war, but to be used inside one. And the shift between those two doctrines is the most important military development on the Korean Peninsula in 3 decades. Nothing stays hidden. Everything gets decoded. The numbers tell the first part of the story. In 5 years, North Korea has developed 13 distinct new nuclear and missile weapon systems. Hypersonic glide vehicles, submarine-launched ballistic missiles, tactical artillery rockets armed with nuclear warheads, cluster munition warheads tested in April 2026, and now AI-guided nuclear cruise missiles. The production lines at Yongbyon have been running at the highest observed rate in the facility's recorded history. The International Atomic Energy Agency has documented a rapid acceleration in plutonium production at the primary reactor. The Defense Intelligence Agency confirmed in April that a probable new uranium enrichment facility is being constructed at Yongbyon, meaning the fissile material pipeline is expanding, not just the delivery systems that carry it. South Korean intelligence estimates North Korea will possess 290 nuclear warheads by 2035. The current estimate sits between 50 and 90. That trajectory is not subtle. But the most consequential shift is not quantity, it is doctrine. Until recently, North Korean nuclear doctrine was straightforward. These weapons exist to deter a US-led military campaign against the regime. No American president will authorize a full-scale invasion. If the result might be nuclear strikes on Seoul, Tokyo, or US bases across the Pacific. The weapons are political objects. Their value lies in their existence, not their use. The AI-guided cruise missile changes that calculus entirely. TERCOM, terrain contour matching, is the same technology that made the original Tomahawk cruise missiles so lethal, combined with AI terminal guidance that visually recognizes and adjusts to the target in real time. The result is a weapon that can navigate through mountain valleys, avoid radar coverage, and strike a specific structure at 100 kilometers. It is scheduled for deployment at artillery units near the South Korean border before the end of 2026. At the same time, Kim inspected a munitions factory producing 155mm self-propelled howitzers. Those systems are being deployed at southern border units this year. And at sea, Kim rode the bridge of the destroyer Choi Haeyeon off North Korea's western coast, reviewed its maneuverability, and ordered it commissioned to the Navy in mid-June. The Choi Haeyeon is a 5,000-ton guided missile destroyer, the largest warship North Korea has ever built. It carries nuclear-capable cruise missiles and tactical ballistic missiles, and it is not alone. North Korea has announced plans to commission 12 nuclear-armed destroyers by 2030. 12 mobile nuclear platforms, operating simultaneously at unpredictable positions across the Yellow Sea, each one capable of launching nuclear strikes from locations that cannot all be targeted at once. This is not a coastal defense navy. This is a dispersed nuclear strike force. Nothing stays hidden. Everything gets decoded. On May 6, 2026, North Korea quietly revised its constitution. Every reference to Korean reunification was removed. Every mention of peaceful unification. Every clause about great national unity that had been in North Korean constitutional law since 1992. Every clause about great national unity that had been in North Korean constitutional law since 1992 is now gone. South Korea is now explicitly defined as a foreign adversary state. The Korean Peninsula is constitutionally recognized as two separate, sovereign, hostile nations. Kim Jong Un was simultaneously elevated to head of state, with direct personal control over North Korea's nuclear forces, written into the foundational law of the country. This is not a procedural update. This is the formalization of a strategic reality Kim has been constructing for a decade. Reunification was always a propaganda fiction, a stated goal that justified the existence of the North Korean state, while everyone understood it would never happen. By removing it from the constitution, Kim is making an explicit declaration. North Korea is a permanent nuclear state, not a transitional situation awaiting collapse or negotiation. Not a transitional situation awaiting collapse or negotiation. Not a regime that can be denuclearized with sufficient pressure or incentive. A country with nuclear weapons intended to keep them permanently. But the element that ties everything together, the missing variable, did not originate in Pyongyang. It originated in Tehran, marking a fundamental shift in Northern tactical strategy. Kim Jong Un's military analysts spent months studying the US campaign against Iran with forensic attention, not studying missile defense systems, not studying sanction structures, studying one specific question. How does a country with significant military capability get disarmed in the opening hours of a US air campaign? The answer they extracted was architectural. When the United States struck Iran, the first priority was to identify and destroy Iran's most dangerous weapons before they could be used. Bunker busters against hardened facilities. Precision strikes on locations that intelligence services had spent years mapping. The lesson for any adversary watching: if your most dangerous weapons sit in fixed, known locations, they can be eliminated before you have a chance to respond. They can be eliminated before you have a chance to respond. Kim Jong Un watched Iran lose its most advanced military capabilities in the first 72 hours. And he drew a single strategic conclusion. Distribute your nuclear capability across platforms that cannot all be targeted simultaneously. Kim Jong Un watched Iran lose its most advanced military capabilities in the first 72 hours. Kim Jong Un watched Iran lose its most advanced military capabilities in the first 72 hours. And 12 nuclear-armed destroyers sailing to unpredictable coordinates across multiple seas at once. A first strike designed to disarm North Korea before it can respond would need to locate and destroy all of these simultaneously. Distribute your nuclear capability across platforms that cannot all be targeted simultaneously. The Iran war lesson applied to the Korean Peninsula, mobile ground launchers that move continuously between positions, in exactly the sequence he chose to build it, and 12 nuclear-armed destroyers sailing to unpredictable coordinates across multiple seas at once. Nothing stays hidden. Everything gets decoded. The Iran war lesson, applied to the Korean Peninsula, explains precisely why Kim is building exactly what he is building, in exactly the sequence he chose to build it. The Iran war lesson, applied to the Korean Peninsula, explains precisely why Kim is building exactly what he is building. Nothing stays hidden. Everything gets decoded. Here is the strategic picture that most Western analysis has not yet fully articulated. North Korea's nuclear program has crossed a threshold, not a threshold of raw capability. Kim had enough warheads to inflict catastrophic damage years ago. A threshold of doctrine, and this change is significant. The shift from deterrence weapons to battlefield weapons means that nuclear use is no longer the absolute last resort of a regime facing total annihilation. It becomes a calibrated military option available earlier in a conflict, potentially delegated to field commanders, built into operational war plans. The constitutional change is the political infrastructure for that shift. If South Korea is a foreign enemy state rather than a brother nation to be reunified, then using nuclear weapons against it carries a different ideological weight. Kim has constructed the legal, political, and psychological framework for a nuclear doctrine that is genuinely operational, not just theoretical, and his daughter's presence at the weapons tests is not incidental. She has been observed at multiple major military demonstrations over the past 18 months. Whatever succession looks like in North Korea, the message is clear. This doctrine, this arsenal, and this strategic direction outlast any single individual. The decode is this: Kim Jong Un is not building toward a war he intends to start. He is building toward a permanent reality he intends to impose. The weapons, the doctrine, the dispersed naval platforms, the constitutional redefinition of South Korea as an enemy, they are all designed to make North Korea impossible to disarm, impossible to invade, and impossible to treat as anything other than what it actually is: a nuclear state, permanent, recognized or not. 3 scenarios now sit on the strategic table. Scenario 1: coerce diplomatic recognition. Kim uses demonstrated battlefield nuclear capability to force Seoul into acknowledging North Korea as a legitimate sovereign state. Not formal recognition on US terms, but tacit political accommodation under nuclear pressure. The goal? Achieve what 70 years of conventional provocation never delivered: permanence. Analysts assess this at approximately 50% probability. Scenario 2: controlled crisis escalation. A conventional military incident, a naval clash, a border incursion, a drone engagement, escalates faster than either side intends because tactical nuclear options now exist on both sides of the planning equation. Not deliberate nuclear war, but a crisis that crosses thresholds faster than any previous Korean Peninsula incident. 30% probability over the next 3 years. Scenario 3: strategic miscalculation. An exercise misread as preparation for attack. A deployment misinterpreted as the opening move of a strike. In an environment where AI-guided nuclear cruise missiles are deployed at border units, and 12 nuclear destroyers operate at sea, the margin for error is narrower than at any point in the 60-year history of this conflict. 15% probability, and rising with every test Kim conducts. The missile Kim watched fly yesterday was not just a weapons demonstration. It was a statement to Seoul, to Washington, to every strategist who treated the Korean Peninsula as a frozen conflict manageable through sanctions and patience. The freeze is now officially over. Nothing stays hidden. Everything gets decoded.